Hello, I'm here with Kim Henderson, who I originally met. I think it was wasn't it Kim at the through Benjamin's executive his.
Yes, it was through the Recruiter Growth Summit back in February, I believe it was.
So I listened to your talk. So Kim had a talk about client retention. And we're going to talk about that because we have an super exciting course that we're offering in collaboration. So I heard Kim talking about client retention and increasing client share for recruiting and staffing agencies. And I was like, wow. And I mean, I admit I've been referring to you a lot now in my programs and with my clients. So I thought we've been talking about collaborating, and I thought I got to ask him to do a course for that we could do together. So without further ado, I want to introduce Kim and ask you, Kim, like, why is client retention and loyalty, right? Loyalty more. Why is that so important for recruiting agencies?
Thank you, Diane, for inviting me in. It's great to collaborate with you on this topic of client retention and building loyalty. It's after 28 years in the staffing industry, it's a topic that really resonates with me for several reasons. I think that first, if you look at staffing recruiting companies in general, we do a pretty good job of acquiring customers. But when it comes to actually retaining and expanding and penetrating the customers that we have, we tend to be woefully, ill prepared, and we tend not to focus on that to the degree that we should. So, if we think back to what the landscapes look like over the past couple of years, we were in a high flying client hiring environment. Right. So people weren't necessarily focused on client retention and loyalty because it seemed like a never ending well of job orders and needs. Now, fast forward to 2023, 2024, what we've seen is a pretty tentative or lukewarm type of hiring environment, right? So now all the customers we have, we need to figure out how we can keep them and expand them and get everything out of them possible, given the environment that we're in. And then who knows what next year and the year after that holds. But I would say that in general, no, regardless of the economic climate and what headwinds may or may not blow, it's always a good idea to go and retain your customers and build loyalty. And Diane, I have a statistic. Would it surprise you to actually learn that acquiring a new client can be 5 to 25 times more expensive than retaining an existing one? Would that surprise you?
I feel like we all know, like we've all heard that a million times, I think, but then it's putting it into, then I feel like people just don't are still focused on getting new business versus retaining clients. Yeah, why?
So here's let me dive into that a little bit more to maybe make us think a little bit. So there's customer acquisition costs, right? In the staffing recruiting world, we have to hire salespeople, we have to hire recruiters, we have back office infrastructure, we have all this SG&A that we have, and then we go out and we work hard. It could take us months to a year to gain that new customer, right? All the while, we're paying salaries, we're paying all this SG&A costs. But then we get that new customer, think about it, right? It's going to take us time. We've got to learn their process. We've got to learn their skill sets. We've got to learn all their hiring leadership, build the relationships, maximize the process. So we may sign on a customer and it could take us a year to actually achieve profitability with them. So that's something to think about, that every time we go to acquire a new client, there's that whole sales cycle up front that could go to a year or beyond. And then even after landing that customer, it takes us a while to become profitable with them. Versus the customers we already have. I read a statistic that said, if a customer has bought from you before, they're 76% more likely to go and buy from you again. So again, the customer acquisition cost that we have really is steep, and it's something we need to consider, that while we fill the pipeline with new customers, it's much easier and much more profitable to go out and expand the ones that we already have.
Yeah, and train your people to do it, because I work with recruiting agency owners, and sometimes the founders are the ones they're going through the past clients, but it's one thing to do it yourself, but then also this has to be part of the training, right? Like when you're onboarding AEs, recruiters, they need to be trained from the beginning on focusing on client loyalty and retention. Is that right?
You hit the nail on the head, Diane. It really is part of, like we train on business development. This is part of all the basic mechanics of the business that we need to know. So if you are a staffing owner or staffing leader, this 10-step plan that I put together is really something that you can take with actionable techniques and actionable insights and work with your team one by one and train them on each one of these tips to go and integrate into their customer service model. And I think beyond that, a lot of times staffing owners, Diane, have a little bit of confusion related to client retention versus client loyalty. And we'll cover that in this training session as well. Retention really just kind of measures that transaction. So we're all consumers, right? And think about every time you go to buy a car. I think everybody's had a pretty rocky experience when it comes to that. We may go to that same dealership to buy that car the next go around 4 years when we want it again. Doesn't make us loyal, right? We may go across town to a different car dealership if indeed they're going to treat us better customer service, listen to our needs, and offer something that's truly a differentiator that this dealership isn't offering. So again, we're trying to get to the loyalty standpoint where our clients become actually evangelists for us and promoters of our service, right? So it starts to make our job in sales and marketing a little bit easier. They go out and say, hey, I worked with ABC company. Here's what they did for me. They start to go and become our champions and our advocates for our services. And that's really what we're after, that loyalty piece. And we'll talk a little bit in the program about how we can go throughout those 10 steps and get to the loyalty.
Yeah, that's awesome. When you mentioned the car dealers, I think of like Harley Davidson tattoos. Like you want the people to tattoo your brand, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's a great example. I didn't think of, Harley Davidson, customers are fiercely loyal, right? They're not necessarily going to another motorcycle brand. I mean, it's a brand that they evangelize and they promote. And that's really what we're after in staffing as well. And
So
hopefully our steps get someone closer to it.
one more question off the cuff, and I know this wasn't something we prepared, but like so sales. So really, like sales is the lifeline of businesses. But then, so how would you like when we're talking about this in loyalty and retention? Maybe that's, I don't know, like what is that? Like if sales is the lifeline, or how would you change that phrase, or how would you word that as far as retention and loyalty?
Sales is a lifeline. Oh, this is a tough one that I'm not prepared for.
Totally putting
Sales
on
is the lifeline, but retention and loyalty, it really is, I'll call it, it's the bone, right? It's the bone, it's the skeleton, it's the tendon of the entire staffing industry, because it does you no good to go out and gain customers if you can't get client share out of them and you can't get revenue and GP out of them. Then really all you've done is waste your time. We don't get paid for signing master services agreements and having a lot of paper on file. We get paid for making placements, right? And so that's what this program will teach us. It's how to go and dig in and have deeper conversations and better conversations with our customers, uncovering their challenges, providing value add. And with that, that's going to drive them to be more loyal to us. So probably a bad comparison. You mentioned, sales being the lifeline. I would say that, retention, really, it's the skeleton, it's the core of the business. You can't retain, you can't build loyal customers, and you're starting over and you have churn every single month. You're never going to get anywhere. You're going to be treading water.
Amazing. I'm totally using that skeleton analogy now all the time. That was a killer. That was so good. Okay, so everybody listening to this, walk, don't run. Get Kim's course on the 10 steps, right? The 10 steps.
10 steps, 10-step plan.
10-step plan to
build client retention and loyalty with your staff and customers.
Okay, 10-step plan to build client retention and loyalty, which is the skeleton holding your business up. So yes. Walk, don't run, and get this today. Get this knowledge today.
Great. We need it for today and for beyond, regardless of the economic climate. It will help you.
100%.
Great. Thanks, Diane.